This is the story of Arthur, King of the Britons. Uther Pendragon was a legendary king of Britain during the 5th century, after the Romans left. He met and fell in lust with Igraine, the wife of Gorlas, Duke of Cornwall. In order to get her, the king laid siege to Tintagel, the duke's castle on the coast of western Cornwall. The king was impatient, though, and contracted with the sorcerer Merlin to deliver Igraine to him, and Merlin did. Using his magic, Merlin disguised the king as her husband Gorlas, who was busy on the battlefield fending off the king's forces. The disguised king entered Tintagel and seduced the Duchess Igraine. At the moment he succeeded, Gorlas was killed in battle. During Igraine's seduction, Arthur was conceived. With the duke now dead, Igraine was forced to marry the king. In due course, when the child was born, and much to his mother's horror and the despair of the king, Merlin came to take the infant baby away. That was Merlin's price for Uther's first night with Igraine. Merlin took the infant Arthur to raise in secret. The boy was given to a knight, Sir Bedivere, who raised the boy alongside his own older child, Kay. When the boy was out of infancy, Merlin returned to Bedivere's castle and acted as tutor and teacher to the young Arthur, who Bedivere was training as a squire to Kay. When Arthur was a teen, they all attended a huge fair in the capital. King Uther had died, and the kingdom had no leader. As part of the fair, there was to be a joust. The winner of the joust, as the supposed strongest warrior, was to become king in Uther's place. Kay entered the joust, though he knew he had no chance of winning. But like all things, Kay had even less of a chance if he didn't enter at all. On the morning of the joust, on the way to the jousting grounds, Kay realized his sword was forgotten in their lodgings. Arthur, as squire, was of course blamed for the oversight. He was sent back to get the sword. Arthur had been distracted by all the sights and sounds of the great fair, and had been slacking in all his duties. The fun and food and just the general excitement kept him awake at all hours, and he was just worn out. Halfway back to their lodgings, Arthur saw what he thought was a war memorial, or something, in the town square. There was a sword sticking up out of a great stone. In a hurry, Arthur thought he could borrow this sword for Kay, and maybe nobody would notice the sword was missing before he had a chance to replace it. In his haste, he did not bother to read the inscription on the stone. Arthur smoothly drew the sword from the stone, and suddenly heard a great roar from the immense crowd that seemed to materialize around him. Standing next to him, in front of the crowd, were Bedivere and Merlin. Arthur was extremely embarrassed at having been caught in the act by everyone, but slowly realized the crowd was cheering rather than yelling at him. It's only then that he glanced at the stone's inscription, which read, "Whomsoever draws this sword from this stone is rightwise king of all Britain." Arthur was duly crowned king, and with the aid of Merlin became a pretty good king. One day the king was out wandering when he came upon a lake. The figure of a woman emerged from the lake holding a sword, tilting the hilt toward him as an offering. When she approached him, Arthur silently took the sword from her. The lady of the lake turned away and walked back into the water. Arthur found his new blade was perfectly balanced for his hand, kept itself rust-free, and never needed sharpening. He also found that it wouldn't cut him, which was why he could hold it by the blade. The young Arthur used Excalibur to help him clean up his kingdom, running off bandits, putting down petty warlords, and just generally making crooks miserable. He made his headquarters at a place called Camelot, a beautiful place where it was not allowed to rain until after sundown. Once he was established, Arthur received a visit from the Duchess of Cornwall, who also might have been the Queen of Orkney, Morgause. He did not realize she was his half-sister, the daughter of Arthur's mother Igraine and her first husband, Duke Gorlas. Morgause, however, knew exactly who Arthur was and what the relationship was, and she had planned the whole thing very carefully. Like Arthur's father did to Igraine, the Morgause seduced Arthur, and like Igraine, Morgause conceived and, in due course, their son, Mordred, was born. Unlike Arthur, Mordred was raised to know who his father was, though Arthur was not told about his son. Mordred was also raised with a strong and enduring hatred for Arthur. Eventually, Arthur became convinced he needed to marry in order to provide an heir for the kingdom. Mordred didn't count, born to someone else's wife and being his father's nephew, and unknown to Arthur. Arthur was introduced to many possible brides, and after a long and disappointing string of them, he met Guinevere. It was love at first sight for both of them, and they married and were very happy for some time. Unfortunately, as it turns out, shortly after the wedding, a knight from France sought out Arthur to serve at the king's side. That knight was Lancelot du Lac. When Arthur and Lancelot met, it was also love at first sight. Lancelot already had loved the idea of King Arthur, but the two fell instantly in love with one another when they met, though they first tested one another's strength in a friendly fight. With the help of Lancelot and Merlin, King Arthur formed a group of knights to help him continue to rid his kingdom of the bad guys and fight against the idea that the strongest was always the most right. The group met at a great round table Arthur set up. It was round so that no knight could claim precedence over any other in the order of things. In addition to Lancelot, Arthur enlisted his foster father Bedivere and foster brother Kay, who was by this time a knight, along with Gawain and Galahad and several others. Once the kingdom was fully secure, the knights got restless. To prevent them getting too restless, Arthur set them a new task. He sent them out to the four corners of the world to look for the Holy Grail. The Grail was the cup Jesus drank from at the Last Supper, and in addition to being a religious icon, the cup was supposed to have miraculous powers. The knights scattered to search for the Grail, and this in turn kept them from fighting with one another at home from pure boredom. Lancelot, though, stayed behind in Camelot at King Arthur's side. While the king was away on one of his Grail hunting trips, or maybe it was boar hunting, the two loves of Arthur's life, Guinevere and Lancelot, fell in love. After some torturous times for the threesome, Lancelot and Guinevere decided they loved each other slightly more than they loved Arthur, and ran away together. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, the virtuous and pure Sir Galahad found the Holy Grail. But that's another story. With Arthur's true loves having run away with each other, the king got depressed and despondent. He should have gone after them since he was Guinevere's husband, and he must not show weakness to his people. But if he caught them, he would have to put these people he loved to death. Committing adultery against the king was treason, after all, and they both had, by now, done that. Arthur sought the counsel of Merlin, who is still his closest adviser, especially with Lancelot gone. Arthur was so despondent that he foolishly decided to set off in pursuit of the pair, both hoping and not hoping he could catch them. During the chase, the army of Mordred, the king's rat of a son, attacked Arthur's forces as they marched northward along a western beach. During the battle, Mordred personally attacked his own father, the king. After a rip-roaring fight, Arthur and Mordred mortally wounded each other. What happened to Mordred's body is not recorded, and who cares anyway? But Arthur, at the edge of life, was taken away by veiled women on a ship to an island in the west. It is said that he was returned to health, and now just waits until such time as he is needed as the once and future king.